Being alone is not a curse, it is a blessing in disguise. The greatest mistake we make in life is believing that our strength comes from others, that our value is determined by the company we keep. But the truth is, the greatest discoveries are made in solitude. Look at creation. Before God gave Adam a companion, he gave him an assignment. Before Adam had company, he had purpose. Because God never gives you relationships before he gives you identity. If you do not know who you are when you are alone, you will never know who you are when you are with people. The danger of avoiding solitude is that you risk losing yourself in the crowd. You become addicted to noise, dependent on the opinions of others, and shaped by their expectations. But when you embrace being alone, you allow yourself to hear the most important voice, the voice of purpose within you. Being alone is not a weakness, it is an opportunity. It is in solitude that we come face to face with the most important person in our lives, ourselves. The problem with many people today is that they define themselves by the company they keep. They find their identity in their relationships, their social circles, and the opinions of others. But if you do not know who you are when you are alone, then you do not know who you are at all. Before you can fulfill your purpose, you must first discover who you are. If you need people around you to feel valuable, then your value is misplaced. True confidence is not found in the approval of others, but in the understanding of oneself. Many people fear solitude because it forces them to confront themselves. They avoid being alone because silence exposes their insecurities, their doubts, and their hidden fears. But what if I told you that the very thing you are running from is the thing you need the most? Every great leader, every visionary, every world changer had to go through a season of isolation, because before you can influence the world, you must first master yourself. Before God entrusted Adam with a companion, he first gave him responsibility. Adam had an assignment before he had company. That means before God brings people into your life, he wants to ensure that you are complete on your own. If you do not know your purpose in solitude, you will never know it in the presence of others. The problem with seeking identity in relationships is that people are unstable. They change their minds, they shift their loyalties, and if your value is tied to them, you will be tossed back and forth like a wave in the sea. But when your identity is rooted in something deeper, something unshakable, then no matter who comes or who leaves, you remain the same. This is why being alone is a gift. It is a season where you get to build yourself from the inside out. You learn what you love, what you stand for, what you believe in. And when you step into relationships, you bring value instead of seeking it. Many people enter relationships searching for completion, expecting others to fill the void inside them. But let me tell you, no human being can complete you. They can complement you, but they cannot complete you. Because you were never designed to find your worth in another person. You were created whole, designed to function in purpose, whether alone or surrounded by people. That is why solitude is necessary. It teaches you to be content with yourself. It forces you to ask the hard questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What do I believe? What am I willing to fight for? These are questions that only you can answer. And they are best answered in the stillness of solitude. You see, there is a reason why the greatest moments of revelation come in isolation. Joseph was alone in a pit before he became a ruler in a palace. Moses was alone in the wilderness before he led a nation. Jesus went into the desert alone before he began his ministry. Why? Because solitude is where transformation happens. It is where you shed the false identities given to you by the world and embrace the truth of who you were created to be. It is in isolation that purpose is revealed, strength is developed, and destiny is forged. The danger of never embracing solitude is that you risk becoming a reflection of everyone else instead of an original of yourself. You start to speak like them, think like them, behave like them, because you have never taken the time to discover who you are, but the moment you step away from the crowd, you will begin to hear a different voice. A voice that reminds you that you are unique, that you are gifted, that you are sent to this world with an assignment, and that assignment is not dependent on anyone else. The truth is, you will never be truly strong until you can stand alone. If you always need validation, you are not ready for greatness. If you always need people to approve of your decisions, you are not ready to lead. Because leaders do not wait for permission to walk in their purpose. They do not wait for the crowd to cheer before they move forward. They go forward, even if they have to go alone. So embrace your solitude. See it as a training ground, not a punishment. Use this season to grow, to learn, to build, because when the time comes for you to step into your purpose, you will not step in as someone who is searching. You will step in as someone who knows. And when you know who you are, nothing and no one can shake you. Before every great elevation, there is a season of isolation. Before a tree stands tall and strong, its roots must first go deep into the soil. Hidden, unseen, and alone. Many people desire greatness, but few are willing to endure the process that comes before it. They want the success, the recognition, the influence, but they resist the isolation that prepares them for it. Yet, the truth remains. Separation always comes before elevation. When you study the lives of the most impactful people in history, you will find a common pattern. Before their moment of greatness, they went through a period of being set apart. Joseph had a dream of leadership, but before he reached the palace, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and locked away in a prison. Moses was destined to lead a nation, but before that, he spent 40 years in the wilderness alone. Even Jesus, the greatest leader of all time, was led into the desert for 40 days before stepping into his assignment. This pattern is not a coincidence. It is a principle. Because before you can stand before people, you must first be strengthened in private. Many resist solitude because they see it as rejection. They think being alone means they are forgotten or overlooked. But what if I told you that your season of isolation is not rejection, but preparation? What if I told you that the very thing you are trying to escape is the thing designed to build you? The problem is that too many people want to skip the process. They want the promotion without the preparation, the crown without the cross, the influence without the refinement. But the weight of greatness requires a foundation strong enough to carry it, and that foundation is built in solitude. Eagles do not fly in flocks. The higher they go, the more alone they become. This is because elevation demands separation. You cannot take everyone with you to your next level. There are people who are meant to be part of your journey for a season, but they cannot go where you are going. The mistake many make is trying to hold on to relationships, friendships, and environments that no longer align with their purpose. But if you are afraid to separate, you will disqualify yourself from elevation. Look at gold. Before it becomes valuable, it must go through fire. The fire removes impurities, burns away anything that does not belong, and refines it into something precious. Your season of isolation is your fire. It is where you are tested, stretched, and purified. It is where your character is developed and your weaknesses exposed so they can be transformed into strengths. This is why God will often remove distractions, separate you from certain people, and lead you into a place of solitude, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Many people sabotage their own growth because they refuse to let go of the familiar. They fear the discomfort of being alone, so they cling to relationships that drain them, habits that limit them, and environments that no longer serve them. But until you are willing to step away from what is comfortable, you will never step into what is destined. You must learn to embrace the silence, to be at peace with solitude, and to trust that separation is not the end, it is the beginning of something greater. The problem is we often mistake separation for loneliness. But there is a difference. Loneliness is the feeling of emptiness, but separation is the process of becoming full of wisdom, full of clarity, full of purpose. When God separates you, He is not leaving you empty. He is making room for more vision, more strength, more preparation. If you are in a season where it feels like doors are closing, people are leaving, and distractions are being stripped away, do not fight it. Do not run back to what is familiar just because solitude feels uncomfortable. Instead, recognize that you are being positioned for something greater. The greatest mistake you can make is trying to force people, situations, or circumstances that no longer align with your future. Some people were only meant to be part of your foundation, not your building. When you hold onto relationships that were meant for a past season, you delay your own progress. Do not be afraid to walk alone. Do not be afraid to embrace the silence, because the silence is where your next level is being birthed. One day, you will look back and realize that the season you thought was breaking you was actually making you. The isolation you feared was the training ground for your greatest victory. So do not resist the process. Do not fight the separation, because when the time comes for your elevation, you will not just rise, you will soar. Strength is not built in noise, it is built in silence. Growth does not happen in the crowd, it happens in solitude. The world has conditioned us to believe that movement means progress, that busyness equals productivity, and that being surrounded by people is the measure of success. But the greatest lessons in life are not learned in the presence of others. They are learned in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Many people fear silence because they have never learned to be alone with their thoughts. They constantly seek distractions, filling their time with endless noise, social media, conversations, entertainment, because they do not want to face themselves. But strength is not developed in activity, it is developed in stillness. If you cannot sit in silence and be at peace with yourself, then you have not yet discovered your true power. Because true strength is not found in what you do, it is found in who you become when no one is around. Look at nature. The strongest trees are not the ones that grow quickly and spread wide. They are the ones that grow slowly and dig deep. Their roots go far beneath the surface, unseen, untouched, strengthening them for the storms ahead. That process happens in the dark, in the silence of the soil, away from the eyes of the world. If a tree does not develop deep roots in private, it will not stand when the winds come in public. And so it is with you. If you do not develop inner strength in silence, you will not withstand the pressures of life when they come. Silence teaches discipline. It forces you to listen, to reflect, to evaluate. It strips away distractions and allows you to focus on what truly matters. Some of the greatest revelations in history were birthed in solitude. The most powerful ideas, the most transformative decisions, the most life-changing visions came to people when they were alone in deep thought. Because when you remove the noise, you make room for clarity. And when you have clarity, you have direction. Many people struggle in life not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they have never taken the time to be still. They are so busy trying to keep up with the world that they never pause to ask themselves, where am I really going? What is my purpose? What do I truly want? When you embrace silence, you begin to hear answers that were always there, but drowned out by the noise of the world. Great leaders understand the power of stillness. Before Moses led a nation, he spent years in the quiet of the wilderness. Before Joseph ruled in Egypt, he was alone in a prison cell. Before Jesus began his ministry, he spent 40 days in the silence of the desert. Why? Because strength is built in silence. It is in solitude that character is refined, wisdom is gained, and purpose is revealed. If you are unwilling to be still, you will never be truly strong. The reason many people never reach their full potential is because they are afraid of solitude. They seek comfort in the crowd, validation from others, and distractions to avoid facing themselves. But when you constantly seek the noise, you never develop depth. You remain on the surface, tossed back and forth by opinions, circumstances, and emotions. Depth is developed in silence. Stability is built in stillness. If you want to be unshakable, you must be willing to separate yourself long enough to strengthen your foundation. Silence also reveals weakness. It exposes the things you need to confront, the fears, the doubts, the insecurities you have been ignoring. This is why many avoid it, because they do not want to deal with what is within them. But you cannot fix what you refuse to face, and you cannot grow beyond what you are unwilling to acknowledge. The silence does not weaken you. It shows you where you need to become stronger. The truth is, if you cannot handle silence, you are not ready for greatness. Because the higher you go, the quieter it gets. The most successful, most powerful, most disciplined people in the world are those who have mastered the ability to be still, to think deeply, to move with intention instead of being driven by distractions. The ones who are always chasing noise will never last, because noise does not build endurance. Silence does. So embrace stillness, seek solitude, learn to be comfortable in the quiet, because that is where strength is formed. And when the time comes for you to rise, you will not be moved by pressure, shaken by opinions, or swayed by circumstances, because your strength was not built in the noise, it was built in the silence. Separation is not rejection, it is preparation. Too often we see isolation as something negative, something painful, something to avoid. But what if I told you that your season of separation is not meant to hurt you, it is meant to prepare you? And the problem is many people resist the very process designed to make them stronger. They fight against solitude, trying to force connections, relationships, and environments that no longer serve them. But before you can step into your next level, you must go through a season of being set apart. Look at every great leader, every visionary, every world changer. They all went through a time when they had to walk alone. Not because they were unloved, but because they were being prepared. Joseph had to be separated from his brothers before he could lead a nation. Moses had to leave the palace before he could become a deliverer. Jesus had to go into the wilderness before he could begin his mission. Why? Because preparation happens in isolation. The problem is that many people try to rush the process. They don't want to be alone, so they cling to people who were never meant to stay. They hold on to relationships that no longer align with their purpose. They try to force friendships that have already served their season. But not everyone is meant to go with you. Some people were part of your foundation, but they are not part of your future. And if you are not willing to separate, you will limit yourself. Think about a rocket. Before it reaches space, certain parts must detach. If those parts stay connected, they will hold it back from reaching its full potential. In the same way, there are relationships, habits, and distractions that must be removed for you to elevate. And the longer you try to hold on to what is meant to be left behind, the longer you delay your own growth. Many people fail not because they lack talent, but because they are afraid of separation. They fear being alone, so they stay in the wrong places, connected to the wrong people, engage in the wrong conversations. But growth requires letting go. You cannot step into your future while still holding on to your past. Some of you are asking God to take you to a high level, but you are refusing to release the very things that are keeping you grounded. The reality is, separation is never easy. It can feel uncomfortable. It can feel lonely. But discomfort is the price of transformation. You cannot grow and stay the same. You cannot be great and still seek comfort. Every tree that bears fruit must first go through a pruning season. The branches that no longer produce must be cut away, not because the tree is being destroyed, but because it is being prepared for more growth. Sometimes, when God removes people from your life, it is not because they are bad. It is because their season in your life has ended. You must trust that every separation is for your elevation. Stop trying to reopen doors that God has already closed. Stop trying to revive connections that were meant to end. What is ahead of you is greater than what is behind you. But you will never see it if you keep looking back. There is a reason eagles fly alone. The higher you go, the fewer people you will see around you. Some of you are afraid to walk alone because you think solitude means failure. But solitude is a sign of preparation. God does not isolate you to break you. He isolates you to build you. He removes distractions so you can hear clearly. He separates you from people so you can learn to depend on Him. He allows silence so you can receive revelation. If you are in a season where you feel alone, do not be discouraged. This is not the end. It is the beginning. You are not being forgotten. You are being prepared. You are not being abandoned. You are being elevated. So embrace this season, because when it is over, you will not be the same. You will emerge wiser, stronger, and ready for the next level. Your separation is not a setback. It is a setup for something greater. Solitude is the birthplace of self-discovery. The challenge many people face today is that they do not know who they are. They define themselves by their relationships, their social status, and the opinions of others. They are constantly looking outward for validation instead of looking inward for identity. But the truth is, if you do not know who you are when you are alone, then you do not know who you are at all. Many people fear being alone because silence forces them to confront themselves. It strips away the noise, the distractions, and the voices of the world, leaving only the most important question: who am I? The problem is, most people spend so much time trying to be what others expect them to be that they never take the time to discover who they truly are. They conform to the crowd. They change to fit in. They wear masks to be accepted. But in the process, they lose themselves. Before you can walk in your purpose, you must first know yourself. If you are constantly seeking validation from others, it means you have not yet discovered your true worth. If your identity is dependent on who is around you, then you are standing on unstable ground, because people change. Circumstances shift. And if your sense of self is built on external factors, then every time the world around you moves, you will feel lost. But when you take time to be alone, you begin to separate yourself from the false identities that society has placed on you. You begin to ask deeper questions. What do I believe? What are my values? What is my purpose? These are questions that only solitude can answer. Look at history. The greatest leaders, thinkers, and visionaries all had moments of solitude. Moses spent years in the wilderness before he discovered his assignment. Jesus withdrew from the crowds to pray and gain clarity. Paul spent time in isolation before he became one of the most influential figures in history. Why? Because before you can impact the world, you must first discover who you are. And that discovery happens in solitude. The danger of never embracing solitude is that you risk becoming a reflection of everyone else. You start to speak like them, think like them, behave like them, not because it is who you are, but because you have never taken the time to define yourself. But you were not created to be a copy. You were created to be an original. There is something unique inside of you, something that sets you apart, something that no one else can do the way you do it. But you will never find it if you are always distracted by the noise of the world. Some people fear solitude because they think it means loneliness. But there is a difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is a feeling of emptiness, but being alone is an opportunity for growth. It is a time to learn, to build, to strengthen yourself from within. It is in solitude that vision is birthed. It is in stillness that purpose is revealed. Some of the greatest ideas, the most powerful revelations, the most life-changing decisions were made by people who took time to be alone and think. Because when you remove the noise, you make room for clarity. The reason many people never reach their full potential is because they are too afraid of themselves. They fear being alone with their thoughts. So they drown themselves in distractions. But if you cannot sit in silence and be at peace with yourself, then you have not yet discovered your true power. True strength is not found in how many people surround you. It is found in how complete you are within yourself. When you know who you are, you do not need external validation. You do not need approval. You do not need to fit into the expectations of others. You walk in confidence because your identity is secure. It is time to stop running from solitude. It is time to embrace it. Use it as a tool for self-discovery. Take time to learn about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your passions, your values. When you know yourself, you move with purpose. You make decisions with clarity. You build relationships from a place of strength, not dependency. And when the storms of life come, you stand firm because your identity is not built on shifting ground. It is rooted in something unshakable. So do not be afraid to be alone. Do not see solitude as isolation, but as preparation, because the more you discover about yourself in private, the stronger and more confident you will be when you step out into the world. Your power is not in the crowd. It is in knowing who you are when no one is watching. There is a strength that only comes from endurance. The world teaches us to seek comfort, to avoid struggle, to take the easiest path. But the greatest individuals in history did not become great by taking shortcuts. They became great because they endured. They faced hardships. They went through trials. They experienced rejection, and yet they did not give up. Endurance is what separates the strong from the weak, the successful from the unsuccessful, the extraordinary from the ordinary. And the ability to endure is developed in solitude. When you are alone, there is no one to validate you. There is no one to cheer you on, no one to push you forward, no one to hold your hand through the process. It is just you and your inner strength. And this is where true endurance is built. Because when no one is watching, when no one is supporting you, when no one is clapping for you, will you still keep going? Will you still press forward when there is no applause, no recognition, no immediate reward? That is the test of endurance. Many people fail in life not because they lack talent, but because they lack the ability to endure. The moment things get hard, they quit. The moment they feel discomfort, they retreat. But anything worth having requires perseverance. Anything valuable comes through a process of testing. A diamond is not formed in comfort. It is formed under pressure. Gold is not refined in ease. It is refined in fire. And strength is not built in convenience. It is built in struggle. Look at history. Every great leader, every world changer, every visionary had to endure seasons of hardship. Joseph had a dream, but before he reached the palace, he endured betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. Moses had a calling, but before he led a nation, he endured exile and rejection. Even Jesus, the greatest leader of all time, had to endure the wilderness, the cross, the silence of his darkest moments. Why? Because endurance is the foundation of greatness. If you cannot endure, you cannot be trusted with elevation. The problem with many people today is that they want success without struggle. They want victory without a battle. They want the reward without the endurance. But if you do not go through the process, you will not have the strength to sustain the blessing. Some of you are asking for promotion, for opportunities, for a new level, but you are not yet ready to handle what you are asking for. And so before God elevates you, he first strengthens you. Before he gives you the promise, he takes you through the process. Because if you receive something too soon, you will not have the endurance to keep it. This is why isolation is necessary. It teaches you how to stand on your own. It teaches you how to fight without an audience. It teaches you how to keep going when no one else believes in you. When you are alone, you are forced to dig deeper, to find strength you never knew you had, to rely on something greater than yourself. And when you come out on the other side, you are unshakable, unstoppable, unbreakable. Many people do not realize that their season of struggle is their season of preparation. They see the difficulty and think it is a sign to quit. But hardship is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that you are being built for something greater. Every challenge you face is making you stronger. Every disappointment, every setback, every lonely night, every moment of frustration is adding to your endurance. And endurance is what will sustain you when you reach your destiny. Look at a runner. The more they train, the stronger they become. The longer they run, the greater their endurance. If they quit in the middle of training, they will never finish the race. Life is the same way. If you quit every time it gets hard, you will never reach the finish line. But if you endure, if you push through, if you refuse to give up, you will develop a strength that nothing in this world can break. Some of you are in a season where it feels like you are alone in your struggle. It feels like the journey is too long, the obstacles are too great, the pressure is too heavy. But do not despise this season. Do not resist the process. Because the very thing that feels like it is breaking you is actually making you. Every battle you fight in private is preparing you for victory in public. Every hardship you endure in silence is strengthening you for the future ahead. So, embrace the process. Do not run from the struggle. Do not seek the easy way out. Because the longer you endure, the stronger you become. And when the time comes for you to rise, you will not just stand, you will soar. True confidence is built in solitude. Many people mistake confidence for external validation. They think confidence comes from the approval of others, from being surrounded by people who affirm them, from receiving recognition and applause. But the reality is, if your confidence depends on people, it is not real confidence. It is dependency. And anything that is dependent on external factors is fragile. Real confidence is not built in the presence of others. It is built in the moments when you are alone, when there is no one to tell you who you are, no one to affirm your worth, no one to push you forward. Can you still believe in yourself? Can you still walk in purpose when no one is watching? Can you still hold your head high when there is no one to validate you? That is the test of true confidence. The problem with many people today is that their sense of worth is tied to the opinions of others. They feel valuable when they are accepted. They feel important when they are acknowledged. They feel strong when they have a crowd behind them. But the moment people walk away, the moment the applause fades, the moment they are left alone, they begin to doubt themselves. Why? Because their confidence was never real. It was borrowed. And anything that is borrowed can be taken away. Confidence that is built in solitude is unshakable. It is not based on opinions, circumstances, or external validation. It comes from knowing who you are, knowing your purpose, knowing your worth, even when no one else sees it. And this kind of confidence is only developed in seasons of isolation. When you are alone, you are forced to stand on your own. You are forced to believe in yourself, not because others do, but because you do. And that kind of belief is what makes you unstoppable. Look at history. Every great leader, every world changer, every visionary had to go through a season of solitude where their confidence was tested. Joseph was thrown into a pit and forgotten in a prison, yet he never lost sight of who he was. Moses spent years in the wilderness, yet he still believed in his calling. Even Jesus, before stepping into his mission, withdrew to the desert alone. Why? Because confidence must be tested before it can be trusted. If you cannot stand alone, you are not ready to lead. If you cannot believe in yourself without affirmation, you are not truly confident. And the reason solitude is so powerful is that it removes the crutches. It strips away the external supports, the distractions, the noise of the world, and forces you to look within. And in that silence, you either find your strength or you expose your weakness. Many people avoid solitude because they do not want to face themselves. They do not want to confront their insecurities, their doubts, their fears. But you cannot conquer what you refuse to confront. If you do not deal with your weaknesses in private, they will destroy you in public. Some of you are going through a season where you feel hidden, overlooked, forgotten. You wonder why doors are not opening, why people are not supporting you, why it seems like you are walking this journey alone. But what if this is not rejection? What if it is preparation? What if this is the season where you are being built from the inside out, where your confidence is being strengthened, where your foundation is being made unshakable? Because when you come out of this season, you will not need external validation. You will not need the approval of people. You will not need applause to feel worthy. You will walk in confidence because you know who you are. The most dangerous person in the world is not the one with power, fame, or influence. It is the one who is confident within themselves, the one who is not moved by opinions, the one who does not seek approval but walks with conviction. That is the person who cannot be controlled, who cannot be manipulated, who cannot be stopped. And that is the kind of person you become when you embrace solitude. So do not despise being alone. Do not fear the quiet seasons, because in that silence, something powerful is happening. You are being strengthened, refined, and prepared. And when the time comes for you to step forward, you will not just rise, you will stand with an unshakable confidence that nothing in this world can break. Because true confidence is not given by people, it is built in solitude. Everything in life that is truly strong is tested in solitude. The tree that stands firm in the storm is the one whose roots grew deep in silence. The leaders who shape history are those who embraced seasons of isolation to discover their identity, build their endurance, and develop unshakable confidence. Strength is not found in the crowd. It is forged in the quiet places where no one is watching, where no one is applauding, where only you and your purpose remain. If you can stand alone, you can stand anywhere. If you can endure solitude, you can withstand any storm. If you can believe in yourself when no one else does, then nothing in this world can break you. So do not fear being alone, embrace it. Let it shape you, let it refine you, let it prepare you for the greatness that awaits. Because when the time comes for you to rise, you will not just be strong, you will be unstoppable. Good luck on your journey, walk boldly in your purpose, and remember, your strength is not in the presence of others. It is in knowing who you are, even when you stand alone. Thank you.